Yo, what is going on, you guys? BashtianYgo here, and today I want to go over with you guys how to build a proper side deck, or how to properly build a side deck, however you guys want to go ahead and phrase it. So I want to go ahead and make sure that you guys understand what are the best cards that you should be choosing to make sure that your side deck is the sauciest and spiciest and the best build for you. So make sure you guys leave a like on the video and share with your friends who may need some side deck tips or any side decking advice, whatever it might be. But before we get into the full video, guys, I just want to go ahead and go over real quick what are side deck cards. So of course we all understand that we have a 40 to 60 card main deck, of 0 to 15 card extra deck, and we have a 0 to 15 card side deck to go ahead and play at any Konami, Yu-Gi-Oh event, whatever it might be. Now when it comes to side decking, guys, you can go a multiple different types of ways, but there are some key cards you are going to want to keep in mind when you're starting your side deck process. First things first, you are going to want to understand the categories of each side deck cards. For example, first things first, you guys are going to want to understand board breakers. Board breakers are cards that are essentially, and then as is the name states, built to break the board, right? So these are mainly cards you're going to be citing and going second. Cards like Regeki, Dark Hole, Evenly Matched, Lightning Storm, cards like Triple Tactics Talons, Dark Ruler No More, Forbidden Droplets. These are all can be considered board breaking cards because essentially they're one card that shuts off your opponent's entire board or minimizes your opponent's board to a very minute level, to the point where you only have to deal with maybe 1 or 2 interactions, known interactions at least, and go ahead and go about your day. The other type of side deck card that you guys are going to want to keep in mind are kaiju cards. So not necessarily just kaijus like Kamungus or Gamma Seal or Jizukiru or those type of cards. Cards like Lava Golem is a kaiju style card. Any card that tributes your opponent's monster in order to summon it as a summoning condition, something that cannot be negated, and usually is a fantastic way to out cards that can't be targeted, are unaffected by card effects, yada yada yada, can't be destroyed by battle, whatever. You just go ahead and tribute over it and you're good to go, carry on about your day. So cards like Raw Sphere Mode can be considered in this, Kurikara could potentially be considered this as well. These are essential cards for going second in the event that you guys know that your opponent is going to have cards that are unaffected or can be destroyed or things like that. You have to take it to the next level. Now you have to keep in mind though, if you guys are going to be using these cards, they do require a bit of a specific deck in order to play kaijus or kaiju type cards. For example, Lava Golem was very popular in decks like Hashira, mainly because you don't need to normal summon, and with Lava Golem, of course, as Sphere Mode, you can't normal summon as well. So that is something to keep in mind. Now if you guys do still need your normal summon, but you still want to play these types of cards, you can play cards like kaijus, which you can just special summon onto your opponent's board. Now remember, you can only control 1 kaiju at a time, so you can't be special summoning a whole bunch of kaijus on your opponent's side of the field and then hope to end it that way as well. Next up, guys, I have Floodgates. So Floodgates are any cards that, of course, as in the card kind of states as well, Floodgates are cards that affect the entire field. So cards like Skill Drain that negate all the monster effects on the field. Cards like Anti-Spell Fragrance. It's a lingering effect. As long as that card stays on the board, your opponent cannot do something, right? Skill Drain negates monster effects. Anti-Spell Fragrance prevents your opponent from activating spell cards on the same turn. You had to set it, so it slows down the progression. Cards like There Can Be Only One, which is kind of main decked as well in decks like Vanquish Soul, so that can be a huge floodgate to have to go ahead and deal with. Rivalry and all these other types of things as well. We got 2 more, guys. Next is gonna be the hand traps: Strolling Lockbird, Nibiru, Ash Blossom, Ghost Bella Haunted Mansion. All these hand traps, guys, Imperm, Sideframe Gear Gamma, all these are hand traps, and essentially they are what it is cards you can go ahead and activate in response to your opponent from your hand, which then prevents them from being on the field. These are typically good if you're going to be knowing you're going second, and what you need to do is prevent your opponent from starting their turn before they even get a chance to establish it. So for example, Ash Blossom is fantastic against Branded, Droll and Lockbird is great against Manadium, or sometimes can stop Purelli in some instances, right? Or it can stop decks like potentially Salamangreat, right? So these are all cards that are good against specific matchups, so you're going to want to pick your poison when it comes to these types of things. But These are the type of decks that can potentially OTK you. You are going to want to side hand traps in against to prevent them from getting to that level. And then guys, the last type of side deck card is going to be Back Row Hate. Mystical Space Typhoon, the famous Mystical Space Typhoon, Cosmic Cyclone, Twin Twister, Harpy's Feather Duster, Heavy Storm Duster, as well as the trap card that destroys back row. All these are fantastic forms of removal, but you have to understand which one is going to be the best. So before we get into the full side deck building, you have to ask yourself 3 questions. Number 1, do you understand what your deck is weak against? This is huge. This is something that is exceptionally important to remember. You have to know your own deck. Which may sound ridiculous, and I understand, right guys? But if you don't understand your own deck and what it's weak against, then you don't know what to go ahead and combat. For example, if you're going first, right? If you're going first and you're pretty much struggling against board breakers, right? Then you are going to want to potentially use cards like Solemn Judgment or cards like Anti-Spell Fragrance in your side deck and put them in. If you are struggling against board breakers primarily, they are going to be spell cards, so Anti-Spell Fragrance, flipping it in the draw phase or in standby phase, is going to be huge, preventing you from being absolutely obliterated by cards like Dark Hole, Raigeki, Lightning Storm, Dark Ruler No More, without them even activating it, and they're going to have to set it, which means you can then pop it on your turn or their turn as well. So it makes it more vulnerable, right? So Anti-Spell Fragrance, Solemn Judgment can be a huge addition to this as well, in the event you guys fear cards like Evenly Matched, which can be a amazing blowout card for a lot of decks, especially Labyrinth. I know the deck is can be extremely weak against cards like Solemn Judgment. Against cards like Evenly Matched, so then they might want to side in Solemn Judgment if they are going to be going first, because that is going to be an essential huge card that people are going to be siding and going second. So it's understanding what your deck is weak against and then knowing what to put in order to counter these strategies as well. So make sure you guys are doing research on your own deck and understand it inside and out before you guys start building the side deck and then potentially hurting yourselves as well. An example of this would be like if you're playing a deck that has a whole bunch of on-field monster effects and you side in something like Skill Drain, which is absolutely detrimental to yourself, but you put it in because it might affect the other player, that is not going to help you win if it negatively impacts you. The next question, second question you guys are going to want to ask yourselves is, what does the rest of the meta look like? You guys are going to want to understand what you're going up against before you can build a proper side deck for it. Now, of course, in formats like we are right now, it is going to be very tough. I just finished a regional. All 9 rounds went up against completely different decks, so there's no way exactly to know what decks you're going to go up against. What you can do is do your research and make sure that you guys are understanding what are the best decks of that format. Again, going back to that first question, what is your deck weak against? What will you need to side against? And what are some of the best cards to go up against these strategies? For example, Purelli Kashtira. What do? They XZ summon. What stops that? Dimensional Barrier. These types of thoughts you are going to want to implement. Now, of course, if you are playing an XZ's base deck, you may not want to start off that way, but that's something that you can definitely choose to do and it'll contribute to you winning that strategy. If Branded ever becomes one of the best decks of the format, not saying it's not. I know there's a lot of dedicated Branded players out there. Branded Chimera is better, whatever it might be, fight me in the comments, but cards like Ash Blossom, very detrimental. Cards like Dimensional Barrier, again, hurts the deck quite a bit in order to be able to go ahead and make sure that they are not able to fusion summon. You can also side in crazy cards like Non-Fusion Area. These are all examples, guys, of decks that can lose two very simple cards, just knowing again what to side against. Manadium is an up-and-coming deck. It's a very synchro based deck. It's a very monster effect heavy deck, siding in cards again like the barrier, other cards that may negate monster effects as well is absolutely huge, or that prevent destruction or whatever it might be because they need to pop their cards in the field, prevent synchro summoning, all these types of ways. Draw and Lock because it does a lot of searching as well. All these types of things, guys, can be essentially super crucial, making sure that you guys understand what to go up against and what to build in order to go up against these specific decks. And then the last question number 3 you guys should be asking yourselves when building a side deck is, do you know what you're going to be taking out? So, for example, we main deck cards that we believe are going to give us the best chance to win, and that's of course as the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, right? but understanding what cards will not help you in a certain strategy is essential in making sure that you guys understand. For example, a deck that searches a lot, a card like Ash Blossom is most likely not going to help you, because one search is not going to be the end of it. They will continue searching. So for example, a better card to side in is cards like Droll and Lockbird, which pretty much shuts all that down, and then you're better to go from there, right? Or for example, a card like Book of Moon or Book of Eclipse may not be the best to go ahead and play against a fusion based deck, because fusions can still use face down cards in order to do so, but cards like Book of Moon or Book of Eclipse, because we're on that, will be detrimental to a link based strategy or an XZ based strategy that needs them face up in order to go ahead and go about their plays. So asking yourself and knowing, guys, what you're going to be taking out is essential, because you might be taking out some cards that will be really good in that matchup, and you may have some excess cards. So for example, when you guys are building your decks, it's important to know what the flex spots are. For example, let's just go over Kashtira. Kashtira, the deck has been figured out. You know what you're gonna play. All of the Kashtira decks look exactly the same. There's no real breaking in the deck list, except for maybe 5, 6 cards or 8 cards. Let's go ahead and call it 8 cards, right? Those 8 cards are your flex spot. Okay, you can go ahead and do everything you want with these, or you can go ahead and make sure that you are analyzing the matchup properly. For example, if you are a Kashtira player, 99% chance you are playing cards like D-Shifter, which is perfectly viable and definitely understandable if you are going to be playing Kashtira. If a Kashtira player goes up against Fluanderies, what does Fluanderies also main deck? Dimension Shifter. And you know this, again, based off experience, going back to that second question, understand the meta and understand your matchups, right? So if you're a Kashtira player or a Fluanderies player and you're going up against the other, what's the first card you should be taking out? Dimension Shifter, because it's not going to do anything for you, because you both play in order to hurt other decks, so it's not going to help you in the overall strategy, guys. And these are all things you are going to want to keep in mind. If you guys have any additional questions regarding side deck building, or if you guys have any suggestions or questions regarding what you guys should be side decking, let me know in the comment section down below. Let's go ahead and talk about it, open it up to the discussion. But at the end of the day, guys, remember that we cannot prepare for each and every single little thing. This is a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! There is chance involved, unfortunately, in this game. We cannot be 100% prepared, but what we can do is make sure that we do our homework, do our research, and make sure that we are prepared as possible for what the outcomes may lie. So without further ado, guys, make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe, comment down below what's your favorite side deck card. Let's go ahead and do that, and I'll see you guys in the next one.